First and foremost, I work at a film festival, and the film festival's on once a year. And the thing taxi drivers and a lot of people are always very surprised about is that it's a year-round job. It takes 52 weeks to put together the film festival every year. So during the year, my main role is I search the world and search DVDs looking for films to put into our film festival. But obviously it's a lot more than that. I have to negotiate the screening fees, negotiate the terms and conditions on how we screen them, look at bringing guests out, obviously look at the whole structure of the film festival and maybe whether we want to do spotlights or focuses or if there are any sort of themes emerging. So it's a very organic process, and it involves a lot of planning. Obviously there's all the operational and event side of things that sort of underpin the program. So it's an incredibly involved job year round. Lead the narrative, know where you want it to go whilst respecting and listening to your employees. You have to also be very much a leader and be very strong and confident in where you want to take the particular trajectory. Also, people do like getting feedback and people do like being managed, and I actually found that surprising. That's something I've really come to learn, is that people do like being managed. They look to you as a leader, and it's really important that you're there to show them that you care, but you're also there to lead the way for them. So, I think just be very strong and direct. I'm not really a nostalgic person. I love old things, I love old aesthetics and that kind of thing, but I don't see that has to just be a thing of the past. I notice it's interesting, even today there seems to be a real return to an organic sort of aesthetic in design and things like music video and film and music, and I really love that that's not just seen as a thing of the past. That can be very present as well. So I'm really nostalgic for the present in some ways. I'm really enjoying the 21st century. I think it's so exciting. It's completely overwhelming, and I do think a lot about how things like the internet are changing our physical brain and things like that, but I wouldn't want to live in any other era. In terms of success in the current role and with the festival, I think I have an innate sort of instinct for what works and for what audiences want. So I think a really important factor is listening to audiences and watching them and seeing what they respond to and being very sort of tapped into culture in general. I think whether you're working in film or opera or theatre or music or whatever, you can't sort of look at that just in a vacuum, because particularly in Australia it's a very vibrant, dynamic arts and culture that we have, and there's so much on offer, and you've got to look at what are you competing with and how can you work with those competing factors rather than against them. I think there is a place for both big picture and the details. Obviously, can't have one without the other. And the arts needs a vision and future pathway, as well as structure, systems and processes. So it really depends where you are in an organisation as to what you should focus on, the big picture or the details. I've kind of rose through the ranks and come from being a very detail person in my role, and I'm just naturally a detail person even at home, moving into a big picture role. And that's had its challenges as well. It's very hard to give up being a detail person, but I think it's really important to look at your organisation and look at who your detail peoples are and make sure that team is right on board with what your big picture vision is. They have to be in sync with your vision, and you can trust them with the details, but they need that big picture framework to work in with as well. So it's about helping each other. I think perspective is a really big one. I think in the arts, one comes into contact with some very intense and exhausting egos and some very lovely ones as well, I must add. And it's important not to let it get to you. There's a lot of stress and a lot of people leaning on you all the time. And I think you really have to think about your vision and also the big picture and who you're putting on your arts event for. And so I think that's really important to me, is just to really stick with my vision and not get too influenced for the wrong reasons by big personalities.